Welcome to Dreaming Through Knowledge. Tonight, we drift downward, through waves, through time, and into memory. Beneath the calm surface of the sea lies a hidden world, the remnants of cities once alive with voices and firelight, now quiet beneath shifting sand. We will explore these sunken worlds, places both real and imagined. From the myth of Atlantis to the stone temples of India and the drowned harbors of the Mediterranean, each tells a story of how land and ocean trade places and how memory endures long after walls are gone. If you enjoy these peaceful journeys through science and history, follow the channel and share what you'd like to explore next. When I imagine the ocean, I often think of it as Earth's memory. It remembers everything that has fallen into it: ships, cities, continents, myths. Beneath the blue surface, time slows. Wood decays, stone erodes, but shape lingers. The sea becomes a museum without light. For as long as humans have lived near coasts, the ocean has been both a home and a threat. It offers food and passage but can rise without warning. Most of our earliest civilizations grew near water, in deltas, lagoons, and bays. These same locations, shaped by tides, were always destined to change. As the last ice age ended around 12,000 years ago, glaciers melted and sea levels rose by more than 100 meters. Entire coastlines disappeared beneath advancing waves. For those who lived through that slow catastrophe, the memory of a vanishing world must have passed into story. Stories of floods, of gods angry with humankind, of lands swallowed by the sea. Almost every culture holds such a story. In Mesopotamia, it became the Epic of Gilgamesh. In India, it became the tale of Manu and the Great Flood. In the Americas, in Africa, in Oceania, always the same pattern: a world drowned and reborn. Perhaps the most famous of all is Atlantis. Plato first wrote about it in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, around 360 BCE. He described a powerful island civilization beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. According to him, Atlantis was rich, advanced, and proud, until it angered the gods and sank beneath the sea in a single day and night of misfortune. Whether Plato intended a literal account or an allegory remains debated. Some scholars believe Atlantis was a metaphor for moral decline, a story to warn Athens against arrogance. Others suggest it drew on memories of real catastrophes, volcanic eruptions or tsunamis that struck Bronze Age societies. One possible inspiration lies in the Aegean Sea, on the island of Thera, now called Santorini. Around 1600 BCE, a massive volcanic eruption destroyed the Minoan settlement of Akrotiri. Ash darkened the sky, and the sea withdrew before returning in waves that erased much of the island. Archaeologists found multi-story houses frozen in pumice, murals bright as the day they were painted. It is easy to see how the memory of such a disaster could evolve into legend. But Atlantis is only one name in a much larger story. Across the world, archaeologists have discovered real cities that sleep beneath the water. Each holds a piece of truth, that civilizations rise and fall, and that coastlines are never fixed. Off the coast of India, near the modern city of Dwarka, divers have explored submerged stone structures believed to be thousands of years old. Local legend says Dwarka was the home of Lord Krishna, who ruled a golden city before it sank into the sea. Sonar mapping has revealed geometric formations, walls, platforms, and what appear to be streets, now resting 40 feet below the waves. Whether this was truly an ancient city or the remains of later settlements, The boundary between myth and history blurs beneath the tide. Farther south, near the coast of Tamil Nadu, another story sleeps in the sand. At Mahabalipuram, an ancient temple complex faces the Bay of Bengal. For centuries, fishermen spoke of more temples hidden beneath the sea, 6 shrines lost to a great flood. In 2004, after a tsunami pulled the water back from shore, parts of carved walls and pillars appeared for a few brief minutes before the sea returned. Subsequent dives confirmed man-made structures offshore, their stones worn smooth by centuries of current. Science offers clear explanations for such mysteries. The sea is not constant. Tectonic shifts, sediment erosion, and rising water levels continually reshape coastlines. A city built close to the sea will one day become part of it. Yet logic does not erase wonder. When I picture divers moving through the ruins of Heraklion off Egypt's coast, I feel that same quiet awe. Heraklion, once a thriving port at the mouth of the Nile, vanished around the 2nd century BCE, swallowed by liquefying silt and the gradual encroachment of the Mediterranean. Rediscovered in 2000, it revealed colossal statues toppled but intact, coins, jewelry, and tablets naming rulers long forgotten. The sea had kept them safe. Encased in mud and darkness, bronze and stone endured where wind and war might have destroyed them. In the quiet of the seabed, time becomes gentle. Rate 100%, pitch 1%. Another Egyptian city, Canopus, shares the same fate. Together, Heraklion and Canopus once stood at the entrance to the Nile Delta, gateways between river and ocean. Now they lie side by side beneath 10 meters of water, their columns covered with coral, their plazas patrolled by fish. Across the Mediterranean, in Greece's Peloponnese, lies Pavlopetri, the world's oldest known submerged city. Dated to around 5,000 years ago, it preserves the layout of streets, courtyards, and houses. Archaeologists can walk its lanes with scuba gear, tracing the daily life of people who lived when writing itself was new. The precision of its stone walls and drainage systems suggests planning and community, not myth. Pavlopetri likely sank after earthquakes shifted the seabed, a reminder that the Earth is never still. Where the crust flexes in size, civilizations must adapt or vanish. Even farther east, near Japan, a formation called Yonaguni has sparked decades of debate. Discovered in 1986, it consists of massive stone terraces and steps descending from the island's shore. Some researchers argue it is a natural geological structure, shaped by fault lines and erosion. Others see deliberate symmetry, platforms and roads carved by human hands. If artificial, Yonaguni could date back 10,000 years, older than any known civilization. When I look at photographs of Yonaguni, I see both possibilities at once, nature and art intertwined, as if the earth itself sculpted the memory of a city. Beneath the Black Sea, sonar scans have revealed ancient shorelines far below the surface, suggesting that large areas were once dry land before a sudden flood filled the basin around 7,000 years ago. Archaeologists found tools and pottery near those submerged margins, traces of people who witnessed the sea's arrival. Some believe this event inspired the biblical flood narrative. The more we search, the more we realize how many of our beginnings now lie underwater. It is estimated that 2/3 of ancient coastal settlements from the last 10,000 years are now beneath the waves. Their discovery has become the realm of underwater archaeology, a discipline that combines diving, geology, and technology to read the pages of history written on the seafloor. Exploration relies on sonar mapping, remotely operated vehicles, and photogrammetry. These tools allow scientists to see through darkness without disturbing fragile remains. The process is slow, patient, and reverent. Each new scan reveals the outlines of streets, walls, or statues, ghostly blueprints glowing on screens aboard research vessels. The sea guards its secrets carefully. Pressure, cold, and depth limit human access, and most of the ocean floor remains unexplored. It is often said we know more about the surface of Mars than about our own seabed. Beneath those silent kilometers, entire chapters of human history may still sleep. Yet sometimes, discovery comes by chance. Fishermen hauling nets off Sicily once brought up pieces of marble. Divers investigating found columns and pavements belonging to an ancient Roman city, Baiae, a place once called the Las Vegas of the Empire, known for luxury villas and thermal baths. Over centuries, volcanic activity lowered the coastline. Now, statues of gods and emperors rest among seagrass, visited by slow schools of fish. I imagine walking through those marble streets in the filtered light of afternoon, waves whispering through arches once alive with laughter. The sea has turned decadence into serenity. Each of these cities tells two stories, one of human achievement and one of nature's persistence. Civilization builds upward. The planet moves beneath. Neither wins nor loses. They simply alternate in an endless cycle of creation and return. In this rhythm, loss becomes transformation. Stone becomes reef. Architecture becomes habitat. Fish weave between columns. Coral grows over steps once carved by hands. The sea, indifferent yet gentle, repurposes history into life. When we study these ruins, we study ourselves, our fragility, our endurance, and our longing for permanence in a shifting world. Each submerged wall whispers that even in loss there is continuity. The legend of Atlantis, the temples of Mahabalipuram, the harbors of Egypt and Greece, all speak of humanity's dance with water. Sometimes we build too close to the edge. Sometimes the edge moves toward us. Beneath the ocean, time behaves differently. Sound travels faster, light fades sooner, but patience deepens. A city might sleep for millennia before sunlight touches it again through a diver's lamp. When we look into those depths, we look not only for ruins, but for meaning, for the stories our ancestors left when land became sea. They remind us that civilization is a tide too. It rises, peaks, and recedes, leaving traces for the next wave to find. In the next part of this story, we will travel through those discoveries in detail, from the ancient Mediterranean ports to the coasts of Asia and the Americas, exploring how science separates legend from truth, and what these lost cities reveal about the planet's restless heart. When we look out over the calm surface of the sea, it is easy to forget that below lies another landscape, one that was once part of our own. Beneath those shifting waves are hills, valleys, riverbeds, and streets that once felt the sun. To explore them is to walk through the memory of Earth. In the past century, a quiet revolution has taken place in how we explore the underwater world. Before the 1940s, archaeology belonged almost entirely to dry land. the sea kept its secrets. Then, with the invention of the aqualung by Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnan, a new era began. For the first time, humans could breathe underwater long enough to study what lay beneath. I often imagine those first divers descending into the blue silence, bubbles rising past their faces, light filtering down in soft columns, the seafloor appearing like a forgotten dream. They were explorers, not of outer space, but of inner Earth. Underwater archaeology combines many disciplines: history, geology, engineering, and patience. Each expedition begins on the surface, guided by sonar and satellite data. Sound waves are sent downward, bouncing off the seafloor to reveal contours invisible to the eye. The images appear on screens in bands of blue and gray, each ridge and hollow a potential clue. When a suspiciously regular pattern appears, straight lines, right angles, or symmetrical mounds, the team takes notice. They lower cameras or remotely operated vehicles, called ROVs, capable of withstanding pressure at great depths. Slowly, the shapes come into focus: a wall, a column, a staircase. History, illuminated by technology. Every discovery demands care. Water protects and preserves, but it also conceals. Once exposed to air, delicate objects can crumble. Salt crystals expand within pores, metals corrode, wood warps. To raise an artifact is to change its environment completely. For this reason, underwater archaeologists follow the principle of minimal disturbance. They document first, recover rarely, and always record context. In the deep, context is everything. A single coin found near a collapsed wall can date an entire site. A fragment of pottery can reveal trade routes across oceans. One of the most extraordinary examples of such discovery came from the Mediterranean off Antikythera, a small Greek island. In 1900, sponge divers stumbled upon a Roman shipwreck resting 50 meters below. Among the statues and amphorae they recovered lay a corroded lump of bronze, forgotten for decades in a museum storeroom. When re-examined in the 1950s, X-rays revealed intricate gears inside. The Antikythera mechanism, an ancient device capable of predicting planetary motions and eclipses. It was, in essence, a 2,000-year-old computer. The sea had preserved a marvel that history almost erased. Without the protective darkness of that wreck, the mechanism might have rusted to dust long ago. Such finds remind us that loss is sometimes a form of safekeeping. What sinks may survive more completely than what remains on land. As I follow the stories of these underwater excavations, I'm struck by how much patience they demand. Visibility is limited, light fades quickly, and currents shift sand unpredictably. A diver may spend an hour descending and only minutes working before returning to the surface. Every gesture must be deliberate, every record precise. Modern expeditions rely heavily on technology. Sonar scanning now produces detailed 3D maps of submerged sites. Photogrammetry, the stitching of thousands of high-resolution photographs, allows researchers to reconstruct ruins digitally, stone by stone. Entire cities can be explored virtually without lifting a single artifact. This digital preservation has transformed the field. It lets scientists share data globally and protects fragile structures from unnecessary disturbance. In a sense, we are building museums of light, virtual archives where the past can live safely beyond decay. Yet the emotional impact of seeing a city beneath the sea cannot be replicated on screen. To float above a stone avenue that has not felt air for millennia is to confront both time and silence in their purest form. I remember watching a recording from Pavlopetri, the Greek site mentioned earlier. The diver's camera drifted along a row of low walls, each stone softened by algae. Small fish darted through doorways that once opened onto courtyards. The sun rippled overhead, and for a moment, the ruins looked alive, as if waiting. Some scientists think the global record of submerged ruins might hold clues to ancient migration and climate change. By mapping where coastlines once lay, they can reconstruct human movement as the seas rose after the last ice age. 10,000 years ago, vast plains now hidden beneath water connected continents. The English Channel was dry land linking Britain to Europe. Between Asia and Australia stretched a region known as Sunda Land, where rivers wound through tropical forests that are now seabed. These areas likely hosted early human settlements, erased when the seas advanced. In the North Sea, divers and dredgers have recovered stone tools, bones, and even mammoth remains from an area once called Doggerland. It was home to hunter-gatherers until it gradually drowned about 8,000 years ago. Now, fishing nets pull up fragments of their world, tools shaped by hands that watch the horizon change year after year. The same story repeats everywhere. On the coasts of Japan, Korea, and China, sonar reveals patterns of submerged river deltas and ancient shorelines. In the Caribbean, researchers have found roads and walls near Cuba's coast that may be geological, but carry the geometry of intention. Each discovery sparks the same question: how many of our beginnings sleep beneath the tides? Exploring these places requires delicate balance between science and imagination. The mind fills gaps the evidence leaves. Archaeologists must navigate between wonder and verification, aware that every myth once contained a truth, even if only metaphorical. When Plato wrote of Atlantis, he may have echoed memories of catastrophic floods after Thera's eruption, or the slow drowning of coastal cultures. The myth compresses centuries into a single night. Science unfolds that night into millennia. In underwater research, patience is measured in years. A single site can take decades to document. Funding ebbs and flows, technology improves, then must be adapted to pressure, cold, and salt. There is humility in that persistence, the recognition that discovery unfolds on the ocean's timeline, not ours. Sometimes the greatest advances come from cooperation. Marine archaeologists work alongside geologists, climate scientists, and even biologists who study coral growth on ancient walls to date submersion precisely. Each coral ring marks the passing of a season, much like the rings of a tree. The living and the lost intertwine. I find that beautiful, the idea that living organisms record the drowning of cities. A coral may anchor itself on a statue's shoulder, growing century by century, unaware that it guards a face carved long ago. Preserving these underwater sites is not only about science but ethics. Looting and unregulated diving threaten fragile remains. Bronze and gold draw curiosity, but context gives meaning. Without context, a treasure becomes only metal. International laws now protect such heritage. UNESCO's Convention on the Protection of the Underwater Cultural Heritage, adopted in 2001, urges nations to safeguard sites in situ whenever possible. It recognizes the ocean not as a graveyard to exploit, but as an archive to respect. The most successful preservation often involves leaving ruins where they are, letting the sea keep its guardianship while we record and learn from a distance. Technology now even allows non-invasive exploration through autonomous underwater vehicles that map vast areas while maintaining delicate ecosystems. Soon, artificial intelligence may help interpret these data, identifying human-made patterns that human eyes might overlook. With each new method, the line between archaeology and oceanography blurs. Both seek to read the history written into the planet itself, layers of silt, the geometry of coasts, the rhythm of tides. Our fascination with lost cities is more than curiosity. It is recognition. We sense, perhaps, that we too build our worlds on shifting ground. The same forces that took Pavlopetri or Herakleion will one day reshape our own coastlines. By studying these drowned cities, we learn resilience. They remind us that civilization is temporary, but creativity endures. The artistry of a carved column or a painted urn still speaks across the barrier of water and time. In recent years, virtual reality projects have begun bringing these underwater ruins to life for everyone. Visitors can walk digitally through Baiai's submerged villas or stand among the colossal statues of Herakleion, hearing ambient underwater sounds blended with gentle narration. Education becomes immersion, calm and contemplative. As more sites are mapped, patterns emerge linking geography and myth. Every culture that told of a flood seems to echo a real geological event: rising seas after the Ice Age, sudden quakes, volcanic collapse. Myth becomes memory. Memory becomes data. The deeper we explore, the more the ocean feels like a mirror of the mind. Its darkness hides infinite forms. Its pressure preserves and transforms. Just as forgotten thoughts rest below awareness until something stirs them, lost cities rest below the waves until light returns. Underwater archaeology, at its heart, is an act of remembrance, not to reclaim what was lost, but to listen to it. Every scan, every dive is a gesture of respect for the civilizations that once stood where now only fish swim. As the research vessels return to port, scientists bring back more than data. They bring humility. Each discovery whispers that human history is inseparable from Earth's shifting face. In the next part of this story, we will follow the path of myth, tracing how tales of drowned worlds arose from memory and became symbols of morality, curiosity, and wonder. From Atlantis to Lemuria, we will see how imagination preserves truths that even time and tide cannot erase. When I think of the ocean, I often think of stories. No other part of our world has inspired as many myths, legends, and dreams. The sea has always been both a mirror and a mystery, reflecting our imagination as deeply as it hides our past. Every culture that has lived near the water has told stories of something precious lost to it. Sometimes it is a city, sometimes a whole world. These are not just tales of tragedy, but of transformation, the sea as both destroyer and preserver. The best known of these stories, of course, is Atlantis. When Plato wrote about it more than 2,000 years ago, he described an island beyond the pillars of Heracles, the Strait of Gibraltar, rich with temples, canals, and radiant white stone. He said it was more advanced than any other civilization, blessed by the gods but ultimately undone by pride. In a single night of storms and earthquakes, Atlantis vanished beneath the waves. Plato's story is short. no more than a few pages in two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. Yet those few pages have generated centuries of fascination. Was Atlantis real or merely a parable about moral decay? Even in antiquity, readers disagreed. Some took it as literal history, others saw it as allegory. When I read his words, I sense both intentions. Atlantis is a warning about hubris, the arrogance of thinking one can master nature, and also an echo of something remembered. A memory of a time when the world itself changed, when the ocean rose and took the shore. During Plato's era, stories of floods were already ancient. Greek mythology spoke of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who survived a deluge sent by Zeus. In Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh told of Utnapishtim, who built a great boat to preserve life. In India, texts like the Satapatha Brahmana described Manu, warned by a fish to prepare for the rising waters. In China, stories of the Great Yu told of taming floods that once covered the land. Even among the Maya and the Hopi, far across the world, similar tales endured. Could so many flood myths be coincidence? Or are they cultural memories of a shared experience? The end of the last ice age, when glaciers melted and the seas rose more than 100 meters. For ancient people, the change would have been slow on a human timescale, yet dramatic across generations. Villages near the coast would wake one lifetime to find their fields salt-touched, their harbors creeping inland. To the descendants who told the story, it might have seemed as though the sea had swallowed the world overnight. In that sense, Atlantis may not be one place, but many. A symbol of all the cities that vanished when the earth grew warmer and the waters rose. Legends have a way of preserving truth in metaphor. The language of myth exaggerates, distills, and remembers. Even the most fantastic stories often hide a kernel of reality beneath their poetry. Take, for example, Lemuria, a supposed lost continent said to lie in the Indian or Pacific Ocean. The name came not from mythology, but from science, or at least from 19th century science's imagination. Naturalists of that time noticed that certain species, like lemurs, existed in both Madagascar and India, but nowhere in between. To explain the similarity, they proposed a missing landmass connecting the two regions. Though plate tectonics later disproved the need for such a continent, the idea of Lemuria captured the public mind. Writers and mystics expanded it into a story of an ancient, spiritually advanced civilization that perished beneath the sea. It was Atlantis reborn under another name, adapted for a new age. What fascinates me is not whether these places existed, but why we keep imagining them. Perhaps we sense intuitively that the ocean hides chapters of our history. When we stare into its depths, we see not only mystery but potential, a reflection of our own lost origins. The pattern of lost city myths follows a rhythm. Civilization rises, prospers, becomes arrogant, and is punished by the elements. The flood washes away the pride of humanity, leaving behind a moral lesson and a promise of renewal. It is a story of balance, destruction serving creation. From a psychological view, these myths might express our awareness of impermanence. We know, even unconsciously, that everything built will someday fall, that even the tallest cities are temporary. The story of Atlantis comforts us by turning that loss into meaning. There is also something archetypal about the idea of a world beneath the water. Depth has always symbolized the unconscious, the hidden parts of the mind. To descend is to explore ourselves. Perhaps that is why sunken cities fascinate us. They mirror the structure of the psyche, the visible surface of reason above, and the vast, uncharted depths below. Jung, the psychologist, once wrote that myths are the dreams of humanity. If so, Atlantis is a collective dream about memory and humility, about knowledge gained and lost. Across the world, similar dreams persist. In Japan, legends tell of Ryugujo, the dragon palace under the sea, a place of beauty and timelessness, where visitors forget the passage of years. In Celtic myth, there is a Wise, the glittering city off the coast of Brittany, drowned by sin, and Hubris. The Welsh speak of Cantre'r Gwaelod, swallowed by the Irish Sea. In Scandinavia, the story of Vineta tells of a trading city sunk for its greed. Every culture by the water invents its Atlantis. What these stories share is the voice of warning mixed with wonder. They tell us that what we cherish can vanish, but they also promise that nothing is ever wholly lost. Something remains below, preserved by the sea's stillness, waiting for rediscovery. I think of Heracleion and Pavlopetri again, once dismissed as legends, later confirmed as real. They show that myth and memory often overlap. To the people who first told of them, the story might have been the only map left of a world erased by waves. Science now offers a bridge between these two realms. By reading sediments, coral growth, and isotopic data, geologists can identify when and where the ocean advanced. Many myths coincide eerily with those timelines. For instance, in Southeast Asia, stories speak of a great land called Sundaland, a tropical paradise that sank when the sea rose around 10,000 years ago. Geological records confirm that vast plains indeed disappeared beneath the Java and South China Seas at that time. To the descendants of those people, the flood would have seemed divine. To us, it appears as natural history. The truth lies between nature and humanity, intertwined in memory. Flood myths endure because they resonate with cycles we still experience: growth, excess, collapse, renewal. They remind us that the Earth's story is dynamic and that civilization must move with it, not against it. Even modern literature and film carry these echoes. Stories of lost worlds and post-apocalyptic floods retell Atlantis for new generations, shifting the setting but keeping the rhythm. We still dream of ruins beneath the waves, of knowledge waiting to be found. When I look at ancient flood narratives through the lens of geology, I see human resilience more than divine punishment. Each culture that lost its shoreline adapted, moved, rebuilt. They carried their memories inland, reshaping them into myth so they would not be forgotten. Perhaps that is what myth truly is: memory with emotion, a way for facts to survive not in data but in feeling. In the Pacific, Polynesian navigators speak of Hawaii, a legendary homeland beneath the waves. It represents not a single island but the idea of origin, the place from which all voyages begin. For them, to speak of a sunken land is to remember that the past is never gone, only hidden. Archaeology gives these dreams physical form, but the stories give them soul. Without myth, discovery would be only measurement. Without discovery, myth would drift into imagination. Together, they create understanding, a harmony of heart and evidence. I find it moving that when divers explore a site like Dwarka or Yonaguni, they are not just searching for ruins, they are participating in an ancient ritual of remembrance. Each descent is a reenactment of the descent into myth. They return with images and stories that reconnect us to our beginnings. The idea of submerged civilizations also speaks to our yearning for wisdom. Atlantis is often imagined as a place of higher knowledge, of harmony between science and spirit. Perhaps we sense that somewhere in our distant past we lived closer to nature, before forgetting how to listen. Whether or not such a golden age existed, the longing for it keeps us striving toward balance again. When I read Plato's words describing the beauty of Atlantis, I don't hear arrogance, but nostalgia, the voice of someone remembering a world that once felt whole. That longing connects him to us across millennia. In truth, the real lost cities beneath the ocean are not failures, but continuations. They remind us that creation and loss are partners, that nothing truly disappears. It only changes form. A temple becomes a reef. A legend becomes a compass for explorers. The myths we inherit shape how we see the sea. Where scientists see data, poets see reflection. Both are correct. The ocean is big enough to hold them all. As I think of these stories, I imagine the future too. Perhaps one day, far from now, divers will glide above the ruins of our own coastal cities. They will see towers softened by coral and wonder what people we were, what stories we told about the world that vanished. Maybe they will create their own Atlantis myth, a memory of us. In that thought lies a quiet continuity, humanity always dreaming forward and backward at once. The lost cities remind us that forgetting and remembering are both sacred acts. In the next part of this journey, we will dive deeper into the Earth itself, exploring the geological forces that shape coastlines, the science of plate tectonics, and how continents shift and sink across eons. Through this, we will see how the planet's slow breathing has written the story of our civilizations, again and again. When I think about the cities beneath the ocean, I also think about the planet itself, the quiet, patient artist behind every rise and fall of land. Civilizations may build walls, but Earth shapes the stage on which they stand. The surface of our world seems solid, but it is not fixed. The continents we walk upon drift slowly over a restless mantle. Rocks flow on a scale of millions of years, and oceans open and close like slow breaths. To understand why some cities sank, we must first understand this rhythm. Deep beneath our feet lies the mantle, rock so hot it behaves like thick liquid. Above it float giant plates of crust, the tectonic plates. Where they meet, they collide, slide, or pull apart, reshaping the map of the world. Mountains rise, volcanoes erupt, and seas flood valleys. The continents we know today are temporary arrangements in a much longer story. I often imagine the Earth from afar, continents drifting like slow-moving clouds over an invisible current. In that motion, entire oceans are born and die. The Atlantic, for example, began as a crack in a supercontinent called Pangaea, around 200 million years ago. Lava rose from the rift, cooled into basalt, and the waters of the world filled the gap. Even now, the Atlantic continues to widen by a few centimeters each year, while the Pacific slowly closes. The same movement that creates mountains also causes earthquakes, sudden reminders of Earth's quiet restlessness. For ancient people, such events felt divine. When the ground shook or the sea withdrew and returned as a wave, they saw gods at work. Yet beneath those myths lay precise physical processes: subduction, uplift, and the shifting of faults. One of the most dramatic examples of Earth's power lies in the Mediterranean, where Africa and Europe collide. This collision forged the Alps and reshaped the seafloor countless times. It is here that many of the world's most famous sunken sites were born and lost. Thera, the island of Santorini, rests upon the edge of a volcanic caldera formed by one of the largest eruptions in human history. Around 1600 BCE, the volcano exploded with the force of thousands of atomic bombs. Ash darkened the sky. Tsunamis swept across the Aegean, and the Minoan civilization that thrived nearby began to decline. Today, the whitewashed houses of modern Santorini perch on the rim of that ancient wound. The same tectonic energy that created Santorini continues across the Mediterranean. Along the Hellenic Arc, the African plate slides beneath the Aegean microplate, generating frequent quakes. It is a slow-motion conversation between continents, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted. In Egypt, the cities of Heracleion and Canopus were undone not by a single disaster, but by the gradual process called liquefaction. When saturated soil is shaken by earthquakes, it can lose its strength and behave like liquid. Buildings once stable begin to sink. Over centuries, these movements lowered entire districts into the Nile Delta's soft mud. Geology works both suddenly and gently. It destroys with violence and erases with patience. Rivers deposit sediment, coasts erode, and land subsides millimeter by millimeter. By the time a city notices, it is often too late. Along many shores, the culprit was not shifting rock, but rising water. At the end of the last ice age, enormous ice sheets covering North America and Eurasia melted. Sea levels rose by more than 100 meters, swallowing continental shelves where early humans had lived. This change unfolded over thousands of years, but still fast enough to redraw coastlines every few generations. Imagine a fishing village watching the sea move inland year after year, wells turning brackish, farmland salting, sacred places disappearing beneath the tide. To those who witnessed it, the rising water must have felt alive, purposeful. Geologists can trace this transformation in layers of sediment. At the bottom of the North Sea, they find pollen from forests that once covered Doggerland. Above it lie layers of marine clay, evidence of the flood that ended that world. Similar sequences appear along the coasts of Asia and Australia, confirming that the ocean's reach was global. The cause was climate, specifically the rapid warming that followed the Ice Age. As glaciers melted, not only did sea levels rise, but Earth's crust rebounded where the weight of ice had pressed it down. This is called isostatic adjustment. Some lands rose, others sank. The balance of the planet shifted, redistributing oceans and continents alike. Volcanoes played their part too. When a volcano erupts near the sea, the sudden collapse of its chamber can trigger massive waves and local subsidence. In 1883, the eruption of Krakatoa between Java and Sumatra destroyed most of the island and sent tsunamis racing across the Indian Ocean. Thousands of coastal communities vanished overnight. The pattern was ancient, repeating what had likely happened countless times before recorded history. Similar forces may explain the fate of regions like Mahabalipuram in India or parts of Southeast Asia's drowned coasts. Not all disasters are sudden. Some are the accumulation of small changes. Erosion, storms, subsidence, the sea patiently reclaiming its edge. When we map the ocean floor today, we see traces of these long histories. River valleys now carved into abyssal plains, mountain ranges buried under silt, coral reefs marking the outlines of ancient islands. Every contour tells a story of movement. It is humbling to realize that even the continents themselves are temporary. 100 million years from now, the Atlantic may close, and the Pacific floor may rise into mountains. New seas will form where deserts now lie. Somewhere within that cycle, our ruins will rest, waiting to be found by whatever consciousness follows us. Science can measure these processes with astonishing precision. Satellites track the slow drift of tectonic plates by millimeters each year. Tide gauges record the global rise of sea level, now accelerating due to modern warming. In this sense, we are living through a geological event, one faster than any our ancestors faced. The same physical laws that buried ancient cities may soon reshape our own. Modern coastal regions, from Venice to Jakarta, from Miami to Alexandria, face the same partnership of land and sea that defined their predecessors. But understanding geology brings more than warning. It brings perspective. It shows that Earth is alive, dynamic, and creative. The same forces that destroy also build. Volcanic ash fertilizes soil. Shifting plates create mountain ranges that guide rivers and climate. The ocean floor itself is constantly renewed. At mid-ocean ridges, new crust forms as magma rises and cools. At subduction zones, old crust sinks back into the mantle. Earth recycles its own surface, endlessly reinventing itself. To a human life, these timescales are unimaginable. Yet in their enormity lies peace, the reassurance that our losses are part of a larger continuity. When a city sinks, it joins the cycle rather than vanishing from it. Some scientists believe that parts of continents truly have sunk entirely. Microcontinents like Zealandia near New Zealand, which now lies mostly submerged. Once connected to Gondwana, Zealandia broke away around 80 million years ago and gradually sank beneath the Pacific, leaving only a few islands above water. It is sometimes called Earth's eighth continent, hidden under the waves. Zealandia reminds us that entire worlds can slip below the surface, not by mythic punishment but by natural rhythm. In that way, it is a real-life Atlantis, slow, immense, and true. To trace such histories, geologists read rocks like pages. They study the layering of sediments, the alignment of magnetic minerals, the fossils of coral reefs that grew when the water was shallower. Each layer marks an age of sea or land. The Earth keeps a perfect diary, though we can read only fragments. Beneath the poetic surface of myth, then, lies this geological truth. The world is never still. And yet, through that motion, life persists. Species adapt, civilizations migrate, memory continues. The sea does not erase, it transforms. Sometimes, when I stand by the shore, I try to feel the scale of it. The slow tilt of plates, the deep currents moving continents like clouds. The sand beneath my feet is the same matter that once formed mountains, that once supported cities now long gone. We walk upon history in every grain. The realization brings a quiet humility. The ground we trust is only the momentary surface of something ancient and moving. And yet, knowing that makes the present feel even more precious. We exist in one heartbeat of geological time, brief but luminous. Our ancestors turned these great changes into stories so that their descendants, we, would remember. Today, science gives those stories shape and scale. Together, they form a single narrative: Earth breathing, humanity listening. In the next part of this journey, we will explore the work of those who seek these lost worlds, the modern explorers and scientists who dive into darkness, map with sound, and bring forgotten cities back into light. We will follow their methods, their discoveries, and the quiet wonder that drives them ever deeper. Modern exploration of the sea has opened a new chapter in humanity's relationship with the past. Where legends once guided imagination, science now provides the means to verify and expand those stories. The ocean floor, once unreachable, has become an open archive for those who know how to read it. Underwater archaeology is the discipline that makes this possible. It combines history, geology, engineering, and oceanography to recover evidence of human activity hidden beneath the waves. Its progress over the last century mirrors the growth of our technology and our patience. Until the middle of the 20th century, the deep ocean remained largely inaccessible. The invention of the aqualung in the 1940s by Jacques Cousteau and Émile Gagnan transformed exploration, allowing divers to move freely and stay underwater long enough to document entire sites. From that point, archaeology expanded from the dry deserts and ruins of land to the equally rich landscapes of the seabed. A modern underwater survey begins with mapping. Sound, not light, is the primary tool. Sonar systems send pulses through the water. Each echo that returns reveals distance and shape. By sweeping a grid of such signals, scientists can construct detailed topographical images of the sea floor. Straight lines or geometric patterns often mark the presence of human construction, the outline of walls, streets, or temples long since buried in sand. Once potential sites are located, remote-controlled submersibles, known as ROVs, descend into the depths. These machines can withstand immense pressure and capture high-resolution images, videos, and samples. Their robotic arms manipulate fragile artifacts with precision impossible for human hands. The data they send back to the surface form the first glimpse of cities unseen for thousands of years. In shallower waters, human divers still play a crucial role. Equipped with cameras, lasers, and measuring equipment, they move carefully through corridors of coral and stone. Visibility is often poor. Each motion can raise a cloud of silt. For that reason, documentation must be slow, deliberate, and methodical. Sites such as Pavlopetri in Greece, discovered in 1967 and later mapped with advanced sonar, illustrate what this discipline can reveal. The ruins, dating back to around 3000 BCE, include houses, streets, and a drainage system that demonstrates an early form of urban planning. Digital reconstruction allows researchers to walk through the ancient settlement virtually, studying its architecture without disturbing the fragile remains. Another landmark discovery came at the turn of the 21st century, when the submerged Egyptian port city of Herakleion was identified near the mouth of the Nile. Under a thick layer of silt, archaeologists uncovered statues over 5 meters tall, inscriptions in Greek and hieroglyphs, and the remains of docks that once connected Egypt to the wider Mediterranean. Analysis showed that gradual subsidence and liquefaction of delta sediments caused the city to sink between the 2nd and 8th centuries CE. Each new discovery reinforces the idea that many myths of lost cities contain echoes of reality. The work, however, requires extreme precision. Artifacts recovered from underwater sites are often delicate. Exposure to air can trigger rapid decay as salt crystals expand within their structure. To prevent this, specialists maintain controlled environments for desalination and stabilization, a process that can last months or even years. Preservation ethics have become central to modern practice. The UNESCO Convention on the Protection of Underwater Cultural Heritage, adopted in 2001, established international standards for excavation and protection. Its guidelines emphasize documentation before recovery and encourage leaving artifacts in place whenever possible. The sea, after all, has acted as a natural museum for centuries. Technology now allows that museum to be explored without disturbance. Photogrammetry, the process of stitching thousands of overlapping images into precise three-dimensional models, enables researchers to study details of carvings and architecture digitally. Combined with sonar data, these reconstructions create immersive visual records that can be shared worldwide. Autonomous underwater vehicles have expanded the range of exploration even further. Unlike tethered ROVs, these robotic systems navigate independently, mapping hundreds of square kilometers in a single mission. They rely on inertial guidance, sonar, and artificial intelligence to identify structures that stand out from natural formations. From orbit, satellites now assist by detecting subtle gravitational or magnetic variations in the ocean's surface that correspond to submerged topography. What once required years of diving can now begin with the data gathered from space. Underwater discoveries also depend on collaboration. Archaeologists, geologists, and marine biologists often work together, linking cultural findings with natural processes. The growth rings of corals attached to ancient walls can date when those surfaces were submerged. Sediment layers reveal when earthquakes or floods occurred. Each detail helps build a timeline that connects human history to geological change. One of the most compelling aspects of this research is its combination of ancient memory and modern precision. Heracleon's massive statues of deities, Pavlopetri's narrow streets, and Baiai's Roman mosaics tell human stories, yet they also serve as scientific data points, marking the interaction between land and sea. In Baiae, located near modern Naples, volcanic activity gradually lowered the ground by several meters over centuries. As the sea advanced, luxurious Roman villas and baths slipped below the surface. Today, they form an underwater archaeological park where divers can swim among columns, mosaics, and marble statues preserved in situ. The site demonstrates how geology, art, and history converge beneath the waves. The role of environmental monitoring has grown alongside archaeology. Changes in water temperature, pollution, and marine growth affect how artifacts decay. Understanding these factors helps conservators predict which sites are most at risk and design strategies to protect them. In this way, the study of ancient loss contributes directly to modern preservation. Public interest has become an important ally. Virtual reconstructions and documentaries bring submerged worlds to people who will never dive themselves. Digital tours of Heracleon or Baiae now allow viewers to explore temples and streets once buried in darkness. Awareness helps fund future missions and reminds audiences that the sea is not just a boundary, but a library of shared history. The tools may be modern, yet the spirit behind the work is ancient. The desire to understand what lies beyond the horizon has guided humanity since its beginnings. Exploration satisfies curiosity, but also cultivates humility, each new find revealing how little we truly know about our own planet. Underwater archaeology continues to grow in scale and sophistication. Machine learning algorithms now assist in distinguishing natural formations from cultural ones. Advanced sensors measure chemical conditions around artifacts, predicting how they will age. The goal is not simply to recover objects, but to understand entire ecosystems of history. Beyond the technology lies a deeper significance. Each discovery adds to a broader picture of civilization's evolution. The movement of trade routes, the spread of technologies, and the rhythm of climate change all leave traces on the seabed. By studying them, scientists piece together how societies adapted to shifting environments, lessons increasingly relevant as modern coastlines face rising seas once again. Examples from history show both vulnerability and resilience. When the Minoan world declined after the eruption of Thera, new cultures emerged across the Aegean. After the Nile Delta subsided, Egypt's centers of power moved inland. Each loss prompted renewal. The pattern is geological as well as human. In the future, exploration may extend deeper than ever before. New materials and energy systems will allow vehicles to dive to trenches several kilometers below the surface, where pressure would crush ordinary machines. The technology developed for these missions may also help study extraterrestrial oceans on moons such as Europa or Enceladus, carrying the legacy of marine archaeology into space. Understanding the sea's past is therefore not nostalgia, but preparation. By reading the record of previous changes, humanity gains perspective on its own place in planetary history. The drowned ports, temples, and homes beneath the waves are not only remnants of what was lost. They are guides to how the Earth behaves and how we might live with it more wisely. The stories told by sonar and stone remind us that civilization is a dialogue with nature. The ocean has taken much, but it has also preserved what it took, keeping knowledge safe until we were ready to rediscover it. Each ruin, each artifact, is a message from a time when humanity and the sea were closer than we remember. Through the patient work of scientists and explorers, that dialogue continues. As mapping becomes more detailed and data more complete, the boundaries between myth, memory, and measurable reality grow thinner. What once belonged only to imagination now re-enters the realm of understanding. The modern explorers of the deep are therefore not treasure hunters, but historians of the planet itself. Their work shows that knowledge, like the sea, expands in waves, each discovery leading to the next. In the next and final part of this story, the focus turns to meaning. What do these submerged civilizations teach about time, continuity, and the resilience of life? From the ruins beneath the water, we will look upward again toward reflection, renewal, and the living ocean that connects us all. The search for the lost cities beneath the sea is not just a quest for ruins. It is a way of listening to time. Each discovery reveals that history is not fixed upon the land. It is written across the whole planet, in soil, in rock, and in water. When we look at the ruins resting below the waves, we are seeing the long conversation between humanity and the Earth itself. It is a dialogue that began when the first villages were built near rivers and shores. The same tides that nourished them eventually returned to reclaim them. Across thousands of years, this exchange has shaped every civilization. Coastlines have drawn people together for trade, food, and culture. They have also reminded humanity that permanence is an illusion. The sea offers prosperity and takes it back in its own time. The physical causes of these changes are now well understood. The slow drift of tectonic plates, the rise and fall of sea levels, the pulse of climate cycles. But the meaning behind them extends beyond science. The drowned cities of the world invite reflection on how fragile and how adaptable human life truly is. Archaeology tells the practical story, how rivers shifted course, how volcanic eruptions or earthquakes caused land to subside. Myth and memory tell the emotional story, how people felt as their world disappeared. Together, they describe what it means to be part of a living planet. In Egypt's Nile Delta, the remains of Heraklion and Canopus mark the boundary between stability and change. Their fall into the sea was not a single catastrophe but a slow surrender, a process that may have taken centuries. The sediments that covered their temples preserved them as clearly as any tomb. In Greece, Pavlopitri froze a moment of prehistory, showing how urban life looked 5,000 years ago. Its streets and courtyards are still visible, their symmetry preserved beneath a thin veil of sand. It stands as evidence that civilization's patterns, the desire for community, design, and beauty, are as old as memory itself. Other sites, like Baiae in Italy, demonstrate how natural forces quietly reshape the map. Subtle volcanic activity lowered the ground a few centimeters each century until the villas of emperors rested underwater. Today, those mosaics and marble statues are visited by divers and fish alike, forming a new ecosystem built from history. The sea, it seems, does not destroy, it transforms. What begins as loss becomes preservation. A temple turns into a reef. A wall becomes a shelter for marine life. The boundaries between natural and cultural worlds blur. Rate 100%, pitch 1%. This transformation is part of a larger cycle that defines Earth itself. Continents rise and fall, ice advances and retreats, climates warm and cool. Civilizations adapt in rhythm with these changes. In each transition, something is lost and something is born. Seen in this light, the story of the lost cities is also the story of resilience. Humanity has faced environmental change before. The end of the Ice Age forced migrations and innovations that shaped the modern world. By studying those ancient responses, scientists gain clues to how we might navigate the rising seas of the future. The lessons are not only practical, but philosophical. Civilization is not defined by what remains standing, but by what is remembered, shared, and learned. Even when structures vanish, knowledge endures, passed from one generation to the next through language, craft, and story. Every myth of a sunken land carries this continuity. Atlantis, Lemuria, and the countless flood legends that echo across cultures all express the same truth: that humanity survives by adapting, by turning loss into meaning. Scientific study confirms the foundation of those ancient memories. Sea level reconstructions show how entire regions disappeared within the span of a few human lifetimes. Coastal plains that once connected continents now lie hundreds of meters below the surface. Doggerland in the North Sea, Sundaland in Southeast Asia, and Beringia between Siberia and Alaska. all were once inhabited. The ocean did not erase them, it simply folded them into the next chapter of the planet's story. From a geological perspective, the sea is both an eraser and an archivist. It reshapes coastlines but also preserves what it covers. Oxygen levels on the seabed are low, slowing decay. Mud and silt act as natural sealants, protecting wood, bronze, and even human footprints for millennia. The study of these remains connects the deep past to current concerns. As modern sea levels rise once again, scientists use ancient data to predict future patterns. By examining where and how early settlements flooded, they can model which regions today are most vulnerable. History becomes a guidebook for resilience. Technological progress has made this study more precise. Sonar mapping, carbon dating, and computer modeling combine to reconstruct lost landscapes with astonishing accuracy. What once was invisible is now mapped in color and dimension. The seafloor, once a blank space on maps, is turning into one of the most detailed records of human existence. Yet beyond the science, there is a quiet emotion in this work. Recognition that humanity's legacy is inseparable from the natural world. Each submerged city reflects not only the force of the ocean, but also the persistence of memory. The people who once lived in these places continue to speak, not through words, but through the structures they left behind. This awareness invites a broader understanding of heritage. Culture is not confined to museums or monuments above ground. It lives in landscapes, in coastlines, and in the silent spaces beneath the water. The sea holds the shared memory of humanity, a memory that belongs to all. Protecting that memory is a growing responsibility. Pollution, dredging, and looting threaten many underwater sites. International cooperation is essential to ensure that these archives of the past remain intact. Preserving them is not only an act of respect for history, but a way of safeguarding the lessons they hold for the future. The lost cities remind us that human achievement and natural change are partners, not rivals. Civilization thrives when it works with the forces of the planet rather than against them. Coastal engineering, sustainable building, and adaptive planning all carry echoes of this ancient relationship. Perhaps the greatest insight offered by the study of submerged worlds is humility. No matter how advanced a society becomes, it remains part of Earth's wider system, subject to tides, quakes, and climate. Recognizing this connection brings balance rather than fear. In a sense, the ocean teaches the same lesson that time itself does. Permanence is an illusion, but continuity is real. The surface changes, the flow endures. Many scientists describe a sense of awe when encountering ruins under the sea. It is not only the beauty of the structures or the thrill of discovery. It is the realization that, even in silence, these places are alive, serving as reefs, habitats, and sources of oxygen for the planet. The ocean turns the remnants of civilization into part of its own living system. In this way, the lost cities beneath the sea are not only memories of what was, but examples of what continues. They illustrate the constant transformation that defines all life on Earth. The work of underwater exploration is therefore not about reclaiming the past, but understanding the present. By tracing where we have been, we learn how to move forward with greater awareness. The story of the sea's lost worlds becomes the story of humanity learning to listen to the planet, to to its rhythms and to its reminders. The calmness of the deep ocean reflects this wisdom. Beneath the turbulence of waves lies stillness, a slow pulse of currents that connect every ocean to every shore. It is the same stillness that underlies history, the background upon which all movement happens. When explorers describe descending into the depths, they often speak of an overwhelming quiet. Sound fades, light narrows, and the mind adjusts to a slower tempo. That silence is not emptiness. It is the sound of the planet thinking in its own language of water and stone. In that sense, the story of the lost cities is also a story about listening. Science, myth, and memory all converge when humanity pauses long enough to hear what the earth is saying. The drowned civilizations beneath the ocean remind us of three simple truths: that change is constant, that memory endures, and that life adapts. As the world faces its own rising tides, these truths become guides. They invite humility rather than fear, creativity rather than despair. If the sea has always moved, so too can we, building, learning, and remembering in harmony with its rhythm. In the end, the cities beneath the ocean are not just relics of the past. They are part of an ongoing dialogue between humanity and the planet. A dialogue written in salt and silence, and one that continues as long as we are here to listen. And as we surface from this long journey through time and water, we can carry with us the calm reminder that even what seems lost may still live, reshaped, within the greater flow of the earth.